Hey everybody, Jason Burmis here. It is New Year's Eve 2019, about to be 2020 in just really a few short hours. I mean, we're 9 hours away on the East Coast for another decade to have passed. And boy, what a decade it's been for that Predator class. The plutocracy, the true puppeteers. Now, here's the thing. When we talk about this, a lot of the people we talk about right now are really middlemen. They're frontmen. Okay, yes, they're absolutely billionaires. They wield all sorts of power. They're NGOs, if you will, do influence governments across the world, including ours, right? So there's that. But they work hand in hand with government. And when we talk about the true predator class, what are we really talking about? We're talking about those that own and run the banking systems. Those are part of that royal bloodline, whether it be European or Saudi Arabian, that permanent class. And you don't see a lot of those people on this list. And right away, I want to say that the headline that I'm about to show you here is very deceptive in its own right. And what do I mean by that? Well, first of all, I hate talking about the 1% because I think it's a false it's a misnomer. There is no 1%. These predator class and minions, the ones we're going to talk about right now, they are 0.0001% maybe, less than a tenth of 1%. Let's be very clear of that. So when I say a good year for the 1%, world's wealthiest people got $1.2 trillion richer in 2019, and Jeff Bezos is still at the top after losing $9 billion. But you have to understand that in a world run by the media, military, industrial complex, these people are really just tools of that apparatus. And this rule by bloodline that continues into 2020. It's 2020 and it's still here. So let's look at some of this. And by the way, if you don't know what a plutocracy is, I give Michael Moore credit where credit is due. And I think everybody should watch all of his films because there are large sections in those films that do tell you a lot of truth, okay? No matter which film it is. Now, don't get me wrong, the spin, the deception, the lies, they're all in there. I watched that one Fahrenheit 11/9. Fahrenheit 9/11, number one, really started to lead people down a much darker road that led them to loose change or looking at something like Fabled Enemies and really getting into the nitty-gritty of that situation. Now, in this film, Capitalism, a Love Story, there's a point where he calls out both sides. He's not playing left or right, and he talks about the plutocracy. What is a plutocracy? Well, if you go by Wikipedia, it's actually pretty accurate. A plutocracy, or plutarchy, is a society that is ruled or controlled by people of great wealth or income. The first known use of the term in English dates from 1631. But here's the thing. The plutocracy needs to keep growing. It needs to keep making more and more and more money. And more money. So let's look at who they say the world's wealthiest people are. Now, again, individually, on paper, maybe they're telling you the truth. But there's a lot of people on here that you've never heard of, and you're not going to hear of in these lists. Okay, let me just tell you, there's no Rothschild I'm seeing in the top 10. Okay, now Bezos, Gates, they're there. Kylie Jenner is like the first woman billionaire, and this guy right here, he came in number 3. This is Bernard Arnault, and if you look at him, what's he own? Louis Vuitton, Sephora, all these high-end. Right? High-end merchandising. What's that tell you? Well, it's probably a front for a lot of money laundering and backdoor activity. Okay? A lot of backdoor, stock trading. Because you still have, your classics like Warren Buffett on here. Zuckerberg's there. So there's Buffett. There's Zuckerberg. Larry Page, for those that don't know, he's one of those guys that was in there with Eric Schmidt at the very beginning, coming in, with Alphabet, and there's Sergey Brin right underneath. They're little tech puppets. But remember, when we talk about Google, Alphabet, even YouTube, this platform we're talking about a company that has all these subcontracts with government and pseudo-government agencies, and NASA being one of them. In that very powerful world of encryption via quantum computing, via space. All right? There's a reason that Google and NASA are in bed together in their space program. They don't have to talk about anything in their quantum computing program. And then there's a couple of Kochs. A lot of people thought that, the death of one of the main Koch brothers, meant that their dynasty would somehow go down. Or listen, there's plenty of Kochs. That might be his wife, by the way, Julia. But there's several brothers. Greg Palast done a documentary on that. You should go check it out. All right, so if you look at these people, again, there's the list behind me. But what I want to get across, again, is that you're not seeing, is the Queen of England on here? No. Is Prince Andrew, probably a pretty wealthy guy, but he's also facilitating arms deals. They have literal government protection. MI5, Her Majesty's Secret Service. All right? So we're never really talking about that untouchable class when we talk about these lists. And they always try to play it down with that 1%. The 1% Occupy Wall Street. Well, that's a failed movement because it was based on a lie and a misnomer. Not that there isn't an elitist class, a plutocracy, if you will, a predator class controlling us, but who they are essentially. And, how we could bail out Wall Street 1,000,000 times. If we still have people that wear crowns on their head and are protected by high-level government agents anywhere in the world, and then their kids get to do the same thing, how can we say we've progressed as anything in 2020? I don't understand that. It's something that is uncomfortable to most people, but it's very, very true. And with all of the turmoil in the Middle East, right, and the fact that you have a whole Western media monopoly on information where they're not telling you the truth about Syria and the OPCW, but now in the background they're talking about strikes there in Iraq, and all of a sudden Hezbollah's taken over. We'll probably do a whole video on that. In fact, I think I'm going to do an end of the year AMA thanking all of my sponsors on top of that, and doing it with a New York State story that is just so unbelievable. Just for people to know, I was pretty fired up for this one, but this new catch and release that's now in place is crazy. We're going to do this, but this guy robbed a bank and they let him go with no bail money. No money at all. Him and another person, they just let him go. Investigated. What do you mean he's being investigated? He got arrested, and you have images of him holding the place up and then leaving. What are you talking about? And I mean, we've basically invited people. I'll flip out on this later, guys. I'll flip out on this later. But once again, huge year for billionaires. The rich get richer, the poor get poorer. The middle class becomes more and more non-existent. Automation is coming. They are taking away more and more of our standard of living. Healthcare costs more, it's not as good. The food costs more, it's not as good. Okay? Your job wants to work you more, it doesn't want to pay you as much, give you any benefits. The times they are changing. For sure, 100%, we have to realize that. So guys, thumbs this video up. We've had sort of a comeback. I mean, we got those couple hundred subscribers back that mysteriously disappeared. But then I went to my analytics, and there was one day I supposedly was down 6 subscribers. So I don't know what happened there. I don't know if accounts were taken out or whatnot. But if you want to check out my documentary films that I've made, Loose Change, Final Cut, Fabled Enemies, Invisible Empire, A New World Order Defined, Shade the Motion Picture, it will cost you $0. That's right, nothing. Today and every day. They're in the playlist section for free. They are of high production value. They are not cobbled together. They are much like watching something that rivals you'd see on the History Channel. In a lot of ways, I think they're a lot better, obviously, because of the content. But if you haven't checked those films out, they're free here. Okay, we give everything away here. There's no bonus content or any of those shenanigans. We do it 3 to 7 times a day, like I said. I think my next video is going to be focusing on this New York catch and release, New York executive order, New York police state that I'm living in. I got to get out of here. I mean, that's crazy. That's dangerous, man. That's dangerous. But we did Mixed Martial Mindset, the MMA wrap-up with John Fitch. We have an MMA podcast, but we talk about a lot more than MMA. And if you want to financially support me, get me into the new year. We'll be launching a new one tomorrow. But we've been falling short, but I get it. It's the holiday season. Hey, if you're feeling generous, New Year's Eve, you like content that's not left or right, it's right and wrong. It's going to call out every side of the issue. Please support me. And Brian, thank you so much for that generous donation on top. Obviously, I'm going to be going through these donations this month. We're going to come back. We're going to talk about that. If you can't financially support me, and I totally get it, think about this. Let's show that thread. You could come over here and retweet this thread and heart this thread and send it to your friends and family and let them know that you don't want to see Conor McGregor fight in now less than 3 weeks. They're pumping it up, and they're not showing you that there is a plethora of evidence. In fact, not just some of the evidence. We talked to a high-level police source. And by the way, this happened over a year ago in Dublin. At the end of the day, there's no doubt this young lady suffered a horrendous ordeal. The examinations and all of the evidence shows that she was raped and very badly assaulted in that penthouse suite. So if you want to check that out, that's irishcentral.com. And all this is being covered up by our media. That's how good our media is. Keep looking. I mean, I didn't write these. And they're extensive articles. How there's CCTV footage before and after. How she was badly beaten. How there are witness statements that go into intricate detail. That he's hanging around with dangerous people, a.k.a. the Irish mob. All right? But I'm still scrolling. So if you haven't heard about this, go over to the Twitter, go check it out. Go listen, prove me wrong. Tell me I made all this up. But I don't want to see him fight. I want to see him in a courtroom, and hopefully the only cage he'll ever be in again is a jail cell for this violent crime and others that he's committed throughout the years. I love you guys, and I'll see you on the flip side.